Hello friends, welcome. Friends, on Monday, the budget session is going to start. Now, we are all waiting for the budget, which is going to be presented, I think, on Tuesday. Now, budget is a very important financial document. Why? Because it impacts the lives of every individual in this country. And it lays out the foundation on which the economic policies of the government can be visualized, means where the focus is and where there is no focus or there is little focus. Now, these numbers become too complicated to visualize because there are so many statements, revenue statement, expenditure statement, fiscal deficit statement, and then there are so many other documents which are so difficult to conceive and visualize. Now, for a layman, or anybody who wants to understand the structure of the budget, how the current numbers compare with the past and how these numbers have changed over a period of time, need some kind of mechanism to do that. But the data is all fractured all over the place and it becomes so difficult to conceive this data in one single platform so that the user is fully empowered not only to look at this data holistically, but from every angle. Now, with this intent in mind, what I have done is I have created a tool, and I'm going to show you this tool first, and then I'm going to show you the way this tool has been conceived and what kind of benefits that this tool is going to provide you as far as your ability to visualize the budget. Because this tool contains data of past budget and whatever we have seen in February 2024 and the current numbers till May 2024. So what I have done is, now if you look at this particular tool, you'll find that it has got various selection items. Like if you select category, in a drop down menu, you will see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different selections. So what are the selection? Account summary, which is right in front of you, tax details, non-tax details, non-debt details, and expenditure details. Now, after having made the selection, you have to choose a time scale. Whether you want to choose month time scale or year time scale, both options are available. And then we need full control over the visibility of the data. Now, data can be presented in any form. You can have graphs, you can have line graphs, bar chart, but it is very difficult to look at this data, in a finer level of granularity over a longer time scale. And sometimes animation helps a lot in order to conceive what has happened, because animation tells the story behind the data. But sometimes animation can get too cluttered and it does not really give you the full picture because the bars and the pointers will move so fast that you will not be able to control the view, and therefore you will forget what you saw in past. So what I have done is that I have created a chart or a tool which not only helps you to view this whole picture in an animated form, but gives you full control over your ability to run the animation or the granularity of one time unit at a time. For example, I'll just show you and then I will tell you how this was created. So for example, let's say if I choose month end, and then I choose an animation, let's say of speed of fast, and then I have a slider here. You see, I can basically pull the slider and these numbers, the account summary numbers are going to change, as the side sliders are pulled. So I will take it to 0 and I play it. So once I play this, you'll see that as soon as I play and this particular pointer, you see it, this will start moving and these numbers are going to change. Now, what are these numbers? Let me pause. Before I run this, I'll tell you what are these numbers all about. Now, let me take my pen. So if you look at this particular graph, you will find that there are two different blocks here. This is block number 1 and this is block number 2. Now, both the blocks are important. Why they are important? The first block gives you absolute numbers in rupees lakh crores. Right? You see that? Absolute number. And the second block gives you values at the percentage of GDP. Now every line item or for the account summary statement, which is revenue received, tax revenue net, non-tax revenue net, non-debt capital net, non-debt capital, recovery of loans, total receipt, revenue expenditure, every line item you will see two bars. Bar number one on top, which is slightly grayed, slightly with a lower intensity, and the bar number which is below that, which is going to have a true color, right? So this color has been slightly diluted on the top. Now what these two bars are telling you is that the first bar is the simulated number on a monthly basis as time progresses for a particular financial year starting from 1st April, how these numbers change, and the bottom bar is the budgetary estimate which will remain constant. So for example, let me just play and I'll show you. You'll see that if I play this, you'll see as time progresses. Let me play this. So this start running. As the time progresses, you will see that the budgetary estimate numbers, right, 19.63 as per revenue receipt is concerned, these numbers are remaining constant and this number is changing with time. You see, as the time progresses, these numbers are changing. And then these are the values as a percentage of GDP. So that's how you have to basically view this particular chart. So let me pause this and let me go straight to the analysis, because there is no point in describing this tool unless we are able to see what this tool is telling us. Now, running animation is sometimes very, very confusing. So what I have done is I have given you control here down below. If you press next, then it is going to move by 1 time unit. If you press previous, it is going to move by 1 time unit in the back. So let's look at first the year level numbers, because year level numbers gives the larger picture on a year basis. So if I go below go down in time scale, I'll reach 31st March 2018, means FY 17-18 numbers. So if you look at this, and I'll run this next by one step at a time, so you will notice that our revenue receipt numbers were on a budgetary basis was 15.05 lakhs in the financial year 17-18, and we were able to do 14.35 lakh crore. Net tax revenue was what the budgetary estimate was 12.69, and we were able to do 12.43. And the total receipt numbers was 12.23 lakh crores, and we were able to do 15.51. And these are the percentage of GDP numbers correspondingly. Now total expenditure we did in FY 17-18 21.43 of the total budgetary estimate of 22.18. Fiscal deficit number in absolute term was roughly around 5.9 lakh crores, right? And then other deficits. So if you see here, the fiscal deficit numbers were quite under control, and the total expenditure number was around 12.5 or 9% of the GDP, and our revenue received was around 8.8% of the GDP, right? So this is the overall picture, right? And the revenue expenditure we did around 11% of the GDP, right? Though it was projected 11.38%, we did around 11% of the GDP. Now let me just press next. So the next fiscal year, which was 2019, you'll see that these numbers have changed. So what has happened is, if I go previous, so you'll find that numbers more or less have remained same, though revenue expenditure number has slightly increased in absolute terms, but in GDP terms, the numbers have remained largely same. Now let me just do next again. So if I do next, you will find that now in FY 19-20, our revenue expenditure number actually has increased from 11% to 11.71%, and fiscal deficit number is still roundabout within that particular range. Now if I press next again, you will find that this is the COVID year. Now this is going to be very interesting, and I'll play this on a monthly basis here so that you understand. What happened was our fiscal deficit immediately went up from, so if you look at it was projected at 7.67 lakh crores. We did 9.36 lakh crores. And then in the next year, suddenly it basically went up to 18.21 lakh crores. Right? And we basically revised the number to 18.49 lakh crores. So we actually jumped up multiple times as per fiscal deficit concern, and the fiscal deficit as a percent of GDP was 9.2% of the GDP, right? And the revenue expenditure also increased significantly because GDP base also went down, so therefore it was expected, right? But the interesting part is that how we change our fiscal deficit projections, which is very important to understand. So if I do previous and if I change the scale to month end and I play it, then you look at this. Our total fiscal deficit projection. So I'll just go to the same year, which is the beginning of 2019-20. Yeah. So let's go to previous, and let's start from the beginning of the year, which is 30th April 2019. Not 31st March. Okay, let's start with 31st March. So you look at this fiscal deficit 6.45. Now let me play, right? So when I play, look at this. What's going to happen here? The fiscal deficit was projected for the next year, 7.05. Now look at this. What is happening, right? It went very high, 9.53. Then it basically, look, the numbers were revised, and then it basically went to very high. Let me just go again. I think I did a fast pace. I'll do a slow pace. Then only we will be able to understand. So let's go for the previous, because this is very interesting to see that how our fiscal deficit went out of control, right? So you look at this. So this number, if I do previous, this is the problem with animation. Therefore, this control is absolutely essential. Look at this. So if I am basically here on 1st April, look at this. 29th February 2020, the numbers were round about 7.67 lakh crores was the budgetary projection. We were actually on 10.36 on the earlier year. So if I do next, so we finished in 9.36, okay, on 31st March 2020. If I do next, you see our projected fiscal deficit for the next year was 7.96 lakh crores. And if I do next and see how the numbers have been changing, see, because of COVID. Look at this number, it will go completely haywire. Look at this. I'm going to keep on doing next. The projected number is still 7.96. Now they have revised the projection in January 31st, 2021, because they were able to see that they were not able to meet their expenditures with the projected revenue deficit numbers, fiscal deficit numbers, what they initially conceived because of COVID. I'm looking at absolute numbers, by the way. It is not percentage of GDP. Now let's do next. See? Now we closed our year at 18.2 lakh crores fiscal deficit. Now why I am pointing to this particular fact? Why it is so important? The reason it is important is, I'll show you before I go to other line items. Let me go to expenditure details. Now expenditure detail, if I choose, let's choose revenue expenditure. And in revenue expenditure, what I am going to do, again I am going to do yearly revenue expenditure, year end, and then I am choosing 15 items here. You can change the number of items, you can increase the number of items, you can decrease the number of items depending upon what you want, right? So let me just choose 15 items. And then I go straight back, to the starting point, which is 31st March, which is FY 17-18. Now look at these interest payment numbers, right? The interest payment numbers were what? The interest payment numbers were 5.3 lakh crores, roughly around 5.3 lakh crores. See, this is the interest payment, and all other items were kind of at par with, not exactly with interest payment, but it was looking somehow reasonable, not way beyond the mark. Now why I am showing you this, because this will open your eyes why fiscal deficit and managing fiscal deficit is crucial. So let's go step by step, incremental to next. So when I go next, you see how the interest payments bars are going to change. So we are in 31st March 2018. So I do next. We are in 31st March 2019, still within ballpark reasonable number. Then we go further. We look at this number 6.11, 6.25 interest payment. And then in 31st March 2021, still fine, we can say that, okay, it's fine, but there are some other items like food because of COVID. Look at this. The food distribution revenue spend was extremely high. Because of that, fiscal deficit increased. And then if I go further, see 31st March 2022, the number has increased disproportionately. The earlier, you look at this percentage GDP number. Let's go to the percentage GDP number. I'm going back again. So it was roughly around 3% of the GDP. And by 2021, it became around 3.5% of GDP, that is 31st March 2022, which is FY 21-22. If I do next, now look at this, same, but the number in absolute term has increased. If I do next, now it has increased beyond 3.1%, 31st March 2024. If I do next, and what I'll do is, let me just see, let me make it month end, because then I will be able to see the February numbers also, and I pull it here, and you'll see that the interest payment projection for the February 2024 budget was how much? 11.9 lakh crores, which is 3.7% of the GDP. Now imagine this number and look at the other revenue expenses compared to the interest payments. You will open your eyes. This is so glaringly different, because if I pull it back, you will find that these are absolute numbers. Interest payment versus these numbers. These numbers were not haywire, they were not. If you look at the length of this bar, because this is through scale, and if you look at these bars, you will find that, okay, interest payment is roundabout in the same. If you take a multiple, you will say, okay, that's fine. Now, if I pull it here, in the end of this, the latest projection, 11.12 lakh crores, and look at this bars compared to this bars. Interest payment is going haywire because of the fiscal deficit and the central government debt. And this is a double whammy, because the interest rates are also have to be pegged very, very high, because of inflation is not getting contained. Look at that is why this way to look at the budgetary number is extremely important. Looking at static number not going to give you that kind of feel, and therefore it is important for us to understand and that how important it is to contain fiscal deficit. Otherwise, we are going to go into a huge problem. Now, what is our total budget? Let's go again straight to our main account statement. Remember this number, 12 lakh crores. Our total budget is how much? Account summary in the last budget, last number is 47.66 lakh crores, out of which we have an interest payment of 12 lakh crores. Means 12 lakh crores gone in making interest payments. And that is why, if you look at our capital expenditure, etc., those numbers look Lilliput compared to what we are making payments. See, if you are going to make interest payment at more than your capital expenditure projection in the next year, it is not good. So this is really going to have a huge problem going forward. So friends, this is one important thing which I would like to basically point out here. Another thing which I should show you, and again I will take a yearly time scale, and now look at these two important numbers. The capital expenditure and the revenue expenditure number starting from FY 18-19, right? And let's see how much it has increased, compared to what it was in FY 19. So if I play it, then you see that yes, our capital expenditure numbers are increasing, but our interest payments are increasing here, right? Look at this. And if you look at from a percentage of GDP, 31st March, and let me just do previous, the interest payments in the percent of GDP number has gone up to, as I told you, because this is actually the past year numbers, not the projection. The projection numbers are 3.7% of the GDP, and this is the capital expenditure of the past year numbers, not the projection. So if I do a monthly time scale, and then if I drag it to the last time index, so you can see that the revenue expenditure, the interest payment is 11.9 lakh crores, capital expenditure is 11. So capital expenditure is less than interest payment, and look at this percentage of GDP numbers. Very, very crucial to understand. Now let's look at our collection tax details, which are going to give you a very important insight. So let's look at the yearly, because when I was looking at these numbers, I don't have the budgetary estimate of the number easy to extract. And I'll tell you at the end of this video, because many people will not be interested in how this data has been extracted, etc. So I've kept it at the end of the video, right? For those who are really interested, they can actually know how this data has been collected and aggregated and codified in this particular form. It took me quite a bit of coding, by the way. ChatGPT is not going to help you, though you can take help of ChatGPT, but this coding requires real knowledge of coding. If you do not know coding, it is not possible for you to do this kind of coding, right? So let's look at these numbers. Let's go back in time and let me play this. Now you look at this, the gross tax revenue was in FY 17-18 was 11.23% of the GDP. Now let's not play, let's go next. So if I do next, what is happening? The gross tax revenue has increased, which is roughly around the same percent of GDP. But look at these three bars, because the gross tax revenue is the summation of corporation tax, income tax, goods and service tax, custom, excise duty, GST, compensation cess, and IG, and all these small numbers. And this is assignment to state, which is a negative number. This is gross. So if you subtract assignment to state, then you will come out with net number. Okay. So I do next. Look at this, corporation tax is going down, right? And this income tax, in the earlier stage, the corporation tax numbers were the highest in India. If I go previous, you'll see that the corporation tax was the highest. The goods and service tax was very, very low. Now, if I do next, you'll find that all our collections will come from income tax and goods and service tax. Corporation tax numbers are going down, right? Which is a matter of concern, because income tax impacts the middle class the most. Though high level income people also get impacted, but their income is so high, it does not matter much, right? But if you are going to collect income tax, and if you are not going to tax the middle class people, then you will not be able to collect so much amount of money. Goods and service tax, by the way, impacts everybody in this country, whether they are poor, rich, or so. If your collection in GST is going to go haywire, and income tax is going to go haywire, and the corporation tax is not going to be significant. Look at this corporation tax number in 31st March 2024, 9.11 lakh crores, income tax 10.11 lakh crores, and GST 8.2 lakh crores, right? Imagine this. So that is why the character of the budget has to be understood by looking at this number. If you do not do trend analysis, if you do not look at the trend, you will never be able to understand where we are heading. Okay, so this is important to know. The other thing which I would like to point out is non-tax collections, and this is important because non-tax collection comes from different heads, and some of the heads are very, very important. Here also I will do a yearly simulation to able to see where the collections are coming. Now, main collection, you will find that the main collection is actually emanating from dividend and profits and economic services. These two numbers, the item number B here and economic services here. These are the two main heads. Now here you will see again, this is the budgetary estimate number and this is the actual number month by month, year by year, as you choose the time index, right? So if you look at this, and let me play this incrementally, one step at a time. So if I do next, you will find that what is happening, this number will keep on fluctuating because this is an RBI granted revenue or RBI presented number to the government, and the RBI earns it through various kinds of income which they were able to get, like dividends, etc. They earn interest in international deposit, etc. So this number is mainly coming from RBI, right? Dividends. And this is coming from spectrum auction, DOT license fee. This is the main bucket is on account of this. So you can imagine that how important telecom industry is for India. Look at this, 0.89 lakh crores was collected, was budgeted, and how much it was collected at the end of the financial year? It was collected 0.61 lakh crores. Now if I do next, you will find that we collected, though it was budgeted 0.9 lakh crores in FY 18-19, the government collected roughly around 1 lakh crores, and the dividend or profit was around 1.19 lakh crores. Now let's go. Then you see the number is the dividend profit increased in FY 19-20 to 2 lakh crores, and the total collection as far as the license fee, spectrum fee, and auction fee, etc. was 1.05 lakh crores. Let me do next. So there was a decrease now because there was no auction in this particular year, and there was the profits of RBI also decreased. Now FY22, if you see, the numbers were roughly little higher compared to what we saw in the earlier year. And the last financial year, no, not last, I think this is FY 22-23. Here also the numbers actually went down as far as RBI is concerned. Now if you look at this number, now this number has got a story, and I have to tell you this. This is not the projected number for for the future, for the coming year, because the coming year number I'm going to show you, which is the current year, for which was announced in a February 2024 budget, which I'm going to talk about. But this number is important. This number is important because how can you make 1.53 crore that as license fee from spectrum fee? This is on account of the shares which the BSNL and MTNL has granted to the government in lieu of spectrum which they have given to BSNL. Now, therefore, a large proportion of this number, 1.5 lakh crores, is notional, because this is not a cash flow number. Because when you give spectrum and you assume that the spectrum is valued to a certain level of worth, that valuation is a hypothetical number, because you would not ideally be able to sell it, and even if you have sold it, then to BSNL, the revenue would have emanated to DOT. So this number is not a real number. Similarly, if you look at the number for the next year, and if I basically take it to the last index, you'll find that this has been projected to 1.81 lakh crores. Imagine this number, and that is why. And the projection, as far as RBI's dividend was concerned, was 2.1 lakh crore, but RBI has already given a dividend to the government of 2.16 lakh crores. So though this projection of 4 lakh crores, definitely the government is going to meet, because even if this is an overestimated number and lot of notional things which are there, but this is real. This 2.16 lakh crores is real, and therefore the government will be able to meet this number, right? So this is regarding the non-tax part of the budget. And let's look at the expenditure, because non-debt is a very small amount, so we not look at. Now let's look at the expenditure. This is also, this is because time is less, so I will like to basically talk about expenditure. Now let's look at the capital expenditure, which is important. So if I take capital expenditure, then you will be able to understand where we are spending our capex and how much is the capex spent compared to what we did in the past year. So again, I am going to take the year end and I am going to pull this back to FY 17-18, and you'll see that roads and transport, highway, and if I add everything, if these things are added, right, because there are only 15 items added, it comes out to budgetary estimate was 2.17 lakh crores, and the actual spend till this particular time, 31st March 2018, was 2.14 lakh crores. Now how if I compare it with our the total amount, total budgetary amount in FY 18, so you will find that the total budget was 22.18 lakh crores, and these numbers are capital expenditure numbers are also given here, right? So let's go again straight to the expenditure detail, and let's go to the capital expenditure. So let's do capital expenditure here, not this. And let's select capital expenditure. Now if I select capital expenditure and if I go 1 year forward, then let's look at this. You will find that you are going 1 year forward. What is happening is the main contributions are roads and highways, railways and defense, right? All these three it contributes a very large chunk. And then if I go to next year, you will find that again, defense is basically heading the race, right? Though the other capital expenditure is also increasing. Now, if I go further in 31st March, you'll see that roads, there have been a huge focus. Railways is still there. Defense has gone below. And then there is a transfer of capital to state. We forgot about it. But DOT capital is being shown at 0.55 lakh. Again, this is important to understand. This is notional, because this is spectrum. So 0.55 lakh capital is notional, because this is maybe a small part of which DOT is doing in capex expenditure in base station, etc. But a large proportion is notional, right? So if I go to the next year, you'll find that again the projection is 0.7 lakh crores as far as DOT's capital is concerned. Again, a large proportion is spectrum, which DOT is accounting as if that is real cash. It is not real cash, it is notional. And there is a huge amount of money as far as roads and railways are concerned. A lot of money is being projected as far as roads and railways are concerned. But one thing to point out is, if I reduce these line items and take it to 5, then you will find that the total projection for the budget FY23-24, let me do month end because that will give us the real picture. If I drag this here, and then what I do, I'll have only 5 items. Let's see. See, you remember our total capex was 11 lakh crores, 11 to 12 lakh crores. These 5 items actually contributes to 9.22 lakh crores. So we are so ultimately, if you see, our capital expenditure is only roads and railways, because this is defense anyway you have to make. This is transferred to state, though it is also a very reasonable amount. DOT I would not take into account because a large proportion of it is a spectrum which is notional. So therefore, this gives a real picture as to what is the capex that we are doing and how we are doing. See, there are many things in this tool you will be able to do, but this is actually available for everybody to use. I'm going to share the link in the description because this is going to be available in the website. So I'll just show you how to access this tool. You cannot do it on mobile. You just copy this link, which I'm going to give it to you, and then paste it in the browser, and you will be able to access the tool as I described it, right? So then you will have all the menus right here, and you will be able to select your menus, and it will come up. It will take a little bit of time. So this has come up, and then you can play with this tool based on whatever you like to do, right? So this is the end of the story here. There are many things to talk about. The main data I have been able to extract is from this site, right? The controller auditor account. This is again very difficult to extract because I have to do a lot of coding. So these codes are basically on Jupyter Labs. So site coding I had to do. I have a lot of tabs here on which the data was extracted and processed before it was fed to the stream data application. So I needed the data in this form. You can't really use that data, so you have to have these columns, the clean columns. So once having extracted the data in this form, then I had to process it, and then I had written this application which will be available in my GitHub webpage, and anybody wants to have a understanding as to how this application has been written, they can go and play with this. Okay, friends. So I thought that it is what was useful. I hope that it has been useful, and as the budget numbers come, I'm going to update this application. So keep a watch on it. I'll update this application because then only you will be able to see the real picture of the budget. What is the budget going to do? And probably it will help everybody to understand what kind of focus the government has in various line items. And there are a lot of other flexibilities which I'll keep adding in this tool as time progresses. So thank you, friends, for your time. I hope that you like this presentation. And if you have any feedback or suggestion, let me know. I will take them into consideration and I'll come out with a new video next time. Thank you very much.